The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are that of my own and are not of my employer.
Nobody likes me. Nobody likes me. But that's okay, cause I don't like y'all anyway. And I don't like y'all anyway.
We have until November of 2020 to get our act together as a country, as a nation, to correct this injustice. And the biggest injustice in the world was allowing a foreign power to install a criminal into the White House and turn an administration into a fascist crime syndicate. That must be corrected. And we only have there's only one more election we have to correct it, or this whole thing is over.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
I never met any of the founding fathers, but I'm sure if they were listening to East Coast Radio right now and brand new episodes of Dyze in your house, they would agree with the sentiment. And you could follow us on Twitter at East Coast Radio. Get us on Patreon at East Coast Radio. Vote. Blue Wave 2020. Let's make it happen. East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. Every weekend. We here on East Coast Radio are trying to fight the rising tide of fascism.
The noun fascism is usually defined as a governmental system led by a dictator having complete power, forcibly suppressing opposition and criticism, regimenting all industry, commerce, etc., and emphasizing an aggressive nationalism and often racism.
Yeah, we don't want any of that in America. So we gotta stop it. We gotta put out the fire now. Staten Island boys are no joke. As liberals, not even as liberals, as Americans, as patriots, as people that like democracy. The only thing we can do right now to fix our country is use our weapons. And our weapons are our voices, our handmade signs, and social media. Get the message out there. Voting. Voting is key. Elections have consequences.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
Representing Staten Island.
Staten Island boys are no joke.
Hey, yo. Who's in the house? Dyze in your house. What is the word, peeps? What goes on? It is the weekend. I am Jay Porks. We are back here on East Coast Radio with another action-packed edition of Dyze in your house. You may be asking yourself, you may find yourself wondering, what is this madness I have stumbled upon here on this weekend when I was trying to relax? Well, when you were trying to relax, I was trying to remind you that we have a nation that is under control by a Nazi fascist crime syndicate put there by a hostile foreign power through hacking and American cutouts and election meddling that will continue to go on because there's like nobody that works at the Federal Elections Commission anymore. But we are slipping further and further, and that's what this podcast is, man. This podcast, you're asking what it is? This podcast is a vehicle to help you understand how important it is that you vote and that you take your vote seriously. Because elections have consequences, and we are dealing with them right now. Those are big facts, no cap. Now, you might ask yourself, Jay, I mean, I don't know all these isms, capitalism and nationalism and racism and fascism. I don't know what any of this is. Well, hey Google, what is fascism?
According to Wikipedia, fascism is a form of far-right-wing, authoritarian ultranationalism characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, and strong regimentation of society and of the economy, which came to prominence in early 20th century Europe.
So what you didn't get when I asked what fascism was, you didn't get a list of American values. Because that's not that. Fascism is, for instance, an example of something that has a little taste of fascism in it. There's protests going on in Moscow right now, and trending on Twitter is unpermitted Moscow protests goes on without arrests. Like, people protesting non-violently, not getting arrested, is news coming out of Russia, because that is a authoritarian regime which installed the fascist crime syndicate that now lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, or the circus, because this is the circus. And I don't want to beat on the point. Well, first of all, wow, I almost got into this. Before I start, before the coffee really starts kicking in, let me just say that you're getting this podcast late because I was at work. And the views and opinions expressed on this podcast are that of my own, and not that of my employer. My employer does not get mentioned on this podcast. My employer has nothing to do with this podcast. I pray to God my employer doesn't know about this podcast. But either way, it is in the public domain. So I will say, Jay Porks, these thoughts, they're mine. The words and opinions, the thoughts and views expressed on my podcast, on Dyze in Your House, and on Least Coast Radio are that of my own, and not that of any entity that pays me money to do work. So there's that. We got that out of the way. So we're going to fight fascism by voting. We're going to get out there November 3rd, 2020. It's going to go down. And listen, you might say, you're probably saying, Jay, there's a lot of Democrats. Like, I don't know who to pick from. Well, I agree with you to an extent. But think about it this way. As long as you vote Democrat, I mean, we're probably going to be okay as a country, or at least in the direction of attempting to be okay. If we vote Democrat. If we stay home, because we saw a news story that made us not like the Democrat, if you stay home, if you think your vote doesn't count, or if you're working that day, and you can't get off for like an hour to go to your polling place, it's important. It's your right as an American. Like, you can't enjoy all the lavishness of being in America and not take part in what gives you this America. Your freedoms are getting taken away from you day by day. And you don't realize it because there's, Trump will tweet things and say things and we'll be like, oh, how stupid is this guy? Yeah, he is pretty stupid. But you know who's not stupid? Some of these weaselly Republicans who stuck around to get their little weasel. For instance, Stephen Miller with the migrant camps and the kids in the cages and the concentration camps. That is all Stephen Miller. The white nationalism. He was a Steve Bannon protege. Somebody who worked for Steve Bannon, I believe. Somebody worked at like Breitbart or something. Stephen Miller, big speechwriter. Before Paul Ryan bounced, he got his tax cuts passed. He's a spineless hack. But he passed his tax cuts. So, all those things that you don't want Republicans to do to you, not only are they doing them to you, like, cutting benefits and stuff like that, and not only are they doing that stuff, like, I saw kids won't get school lunches anymore if they owe too much money. I gotta tell you, if a kid goes and can't afford school lunch, then we have to address the why in the why he can't afford lunch. Or why is he paying for lunch? Why does he not get free lunch? If a kid really can't afford, if a family can't afford for the kid to buy lunch. And how much is lunch these days? And I always got free lunch. Because I was always underprivileged. Not that underprivileged, just broke. But I mean, you know, if the kid is obviously pocketing the money, that's obviously not cool. But like, what is going on where schools are not going to feed kids if they owe a certain amount of money? Like, shouldn't you be addressing that? Don't you want that kid to be fed? Who cares about you? That's what you have to ask yourself when elections happen. You have to look and you have to read and you have to understand. You have to read, you know, what these people are about, listen to them talk, and ask yourself this question: who cares about you? Story from not my personal life, but yeah, my personal life. Today, my cousin texted me, and I got word that another member of my 8th grade, you know, graduating class of 2000, back at IS-75, that another picture in my yearbook, died of a heroin overdose. And I can't tell you, like, it's like a school shootings thing where you're not surprised anymore. But, like, that's just freaking sad. You have to ask yourself this question: which politician cares about having my friends not die? Ask yourself that question. Because, I mean, you can enjoy the memes and stuff, and you could think like, oh, politics, Washington they never get anything done in DC anyway. But you have to admit that having this clown at the head of the circus is a really freaking dangerous thing. And it can't be something that's laughed about and joked about and, oh, we ignore it. Nothing bad can happen. This motherfucker tweeted out a picture of Iran. Iran had like a thing they were going to launch, and it failed. So this clown tweets out a picture of the failed launch, haha, like Nelson Muntz, ha, like laughing at like the failed launch. Yeah, but here's the thing, douchebag. Where'd that picture come from? They don't know that we have the camera there, you dumb fuck! So what are you doing? And then you look at the picture closely and you see that there's a shadow over the picture and you say to yourself, did this motherfucker actually take a picture of a classified photo and share it on fucking Twitter? Is he 7 years old? What is going on? Excuse me as I die. I wasn't pausing it because I'm in a groove here, and that gets me tight. Are you crazy? Is this guy really? I mean, and then again, you see what I'm doing here? Now I'm talking about how crazy this asshole is, and I'm not focused on the policy. And that's my problem, and that's the whole game they play with you. And you know what? The news media, for all they report, there's a lot of shows out there that I watch, that I'm watching a story, and I say to myself, you know what? They're reporting this, like, they're basing this whole story around what's going to get a ratings pop, not what's going to inform the public more. And that's what's good about living in the generation we are now. Like, it didn't need to be good again. Like, you know, it got better in time with this thing called technology. And yeah, there are, when you look up things online, there are a lot of things that may not be true. But, you know, if you do a little research, like, imagine being at the library and doing research, except you don't have to walk to different parts of the aisles and go in the bins and get the book of the bins. Oh my god. Go on the shelf and get the book, like, and then go to the other one and carry the book. You don't have to do that. You just find your sources online. There are a lot there's a lot of really reputable news sites available online. There's a lot of really bad ones. There's a lot of ones that are clickbait, you know, clickbait nonsense, non-journalism. There are. But there are some reputable ones. And they're not hidden on the dark web or something. You don't have to have a Silk Road login to understand, to read a story about a politician or about a policy or about what's actually happening in your country right now. Like, for instance, Elizabeth Warren, like, people go, oh, you know, she wants to get free. No, listen. If you read Elizabeth Warren's plans and you listen to her plans, if everything she says, if you tax 2%, 2 cents on every dollar of the wealthy people that are valued at over $50 million, if you tax those people 2 cents on every dollar after the $50 million, then that money can actually pay for all of these things she wants to do. The problem with politics is that usually somebody will get in there and they'll get backed up, and instead of 2 cents, it'll be half a cent. And then that leads to that, you know, it's not a solid foundation, then you don't get what you need to get done. But I'm just saying, that's why voting is important, not only for the top of the ticket, senators, Congress people, district attorneys. Some places have judges that you vote on, which is crazy, by the way. That's another podcast for another day. You gotta read the whole ticket, man. And if, like right now, the reason why this clown is still in office is because there's 100 senators and 61 of them, 62, are Republican. 51? 52? Yeah, it might be 50. So anyway, a little more than half are Republican. Therefore, impeachment, the House, which has more Democrats than Republicans, which is like 400 something people, 600 something people. The House can impeach this motherfucker. And then the Senate decides if you remove him. And the Senate is full of Republicans who will not remove. Because they're still chapped that Bill Clinton was having side chick September in the Oval Office, and they thought that was going to get him removed from office. They didn't realize about the surplus. Not saying what he did was right. Don't get that twisted. I'm just saying that it's a false equivalency. It's like if you say, you know, Trump and Hillary, yeah, they're kind of the same, right? Yeah, except one is tweeting out classified pictures of an Iranian missile base or something that, you know, who knows what the ramifications are of that. Who knows, like, if they know where that camera is. Like, why are we flying drones over there? Like, for a country that's all about liberty, we sure are watching a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? All about, you know, privacy, private citizen, you know, you have the right to privacy. For all that, we preach. I mean, we sure are spying on a bunch of people. I'm just saying. And, like, again, like, you'll ignore like, policy being put out there by Democrats, because this clown fired the head secretary of the White House, like the Oval Office secretary, the one that sits there and, like, knows everybody, that knows everything, like. And people are like, she got fired, she talked to the press, off the record. Well, what'd she say? She said something about the family. Oh my God. Trump looks so upset. It looks like it bothers him. Then I saw a line that was like, she has a full non-disclosure agreement, as does everyone else. So she, you know, so just to let the reporters know, don't go chasing her down. She's not telling you anything, or she's going to be charged with a crime. And besides, like, I don't care what she said. I don't care why she got fired. I don't care that she doesn't have a job. She works for the RNC. She'll go back to work for the RNC, the Republican National Committee. My question is this. What's up with NDA culture? What's up with non-disclosure agreements? I don't know if you've seen... Have you seen that... The Loudest Voice? It's Roger Stone... Rise of Fox News. It's a couple of parts, miniseries on Showtime. You should check it out. Russell Crowe plays Roger Ailes. Really good. Good stuff. But anyway, I know in that one too, like when they fire before someone gets fired, they get handed an NDA. Like, you need to sign a non-disclosure agreement to not let people know how much shit you've been treated like. And, like, I just want to know Maybe it's customary. I don't know. And I'm not talking about executive privilege. I'm not talking about, you know, conversations about things with elected officials. But I'm talking about, like, in terms of what is with the... If you need someone to sign a non-disclosure agreement, what exactly do you plan on disclosing while they work there? Like, if I was presented with a non-disclosure agreement before I started working somewhere, I might rethink... I might say, you know... I might pause and say, wait a second. So what do you not want me to say? Like, about... What is the secret? What are you going to do to me that I'm going to want to... That I'm going to need to be sued and pay millions of dollars if I say anything about it? So many millions of dollars that I'm going to stay silent. Now, if anyone knows me, you know I ain't staying silent. I am loud as a mother. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just saying this. Non-disclosure agreement culture, this is a culture that needs to be examined. I get insider trading. That's different. Like, if you work for, like, Microsoft, and then you go to work for, like, Apple, and, like, Apple only hired you because they want, like, secrets about Microsoft, or whatever the case may be. I get that. That's a thing. But the general non-disclosure, it's creepy culture. And we live in a culture. If you didn't know, we live in a culture. That's where everything that happens, you call it a culture. So, like, it was a video game culture. It might even be a school shooting culture. It might be a gun culture. It might be a racist culture. That's an American culture. That's a timeless culture. And what we can do, because listen, we ain't going. I mean, listen. I would love, and you would love nothing more than to scrub the world of all its racism. At least scrub our country of all its racism. But we can't do that. But we could scrub elected offices of that racism. Because we have the power. And we have the power by voting. And if we just can get to the polls and vote, we can take our country back. And get our country headed back in a direction. Now listen, it's not going to be perfect. Like, we're still going to have the effects of climate change that we have to deal with. And remember, Hurricane Dorian, I want everyone to stay safe who's in that path. But I just want to let you know something. Every time you see one of these storms, and they mention it in passing 3 weeks prior, and then all of a sudden it becomes a Category 4, you may ask yourself, oh, why is that happening? Well, weather's crazy. You can't predict the weather. You can't really predict it, but here's what I could predict. I could predict that right now, the water is the warmest it's ever been because the Earth is the hottest it's ever been. In history, in the history of Earth. Okay? So, take that. And then keep in mind that also, when you have like a hurricane type thing where you have the spitting winds, warmer water, rather than colder water, actually, if the water is warm, it is able to sustain that force more than if the water was cold. Therefore, storms are going to be progressively stronger every time. Coastlines in Miami are higher. There is less square footage in Miami now than there was 5 years ago. Look it up. So if you don't think we need to get back in the Paris Climate Accords and do everything in our power to save this planet, then you just don't get it. Then you just want people to get hurt. Then you don't mind these hurricanes because they're not happening to you. But they came when they came for the Floridians. You know what I'm saying? Well, what about when that shit happens in New York? You gonna be pissed off about it then? Don't tell me New Yorkers don't know a thing or two about complaining about weather. That's all you motherfuckers do. Day and night, that's all you do is complain about weather. And by you, I mean me. Because I live here too. Like, I don't care. Like, listen. I don't care that Joe Biden gets places mixed up sometimes because he's old. He's not deliberately lying to people for the sake of just being an evil human being. Like, do I think Joe Biden... Is Joe Biden my number one choice to be president right now? Do I want him at the top of the Democratic ticket? I want the person who's going to win. Would Joe Biden be my ideal choice in a perfect world? Probably not. But at the end of the day, if he is the candidate, it's really not going to be the end of the world. We need to stay on track and stay focused with our eyes on the prize. And that's voting blue down the line, November 3rd, 2020. We're going to exhaust the vote. We're going to overwhelm the vote. And we're going to leave no room for error, no margin for independence, and no margin for hostile foreign powers to install a fascist crime syndicate into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Dyze in your house. Exclusively on Least Coast Radio.